Hey everybody, it's Ian King, founder of King Sports International and author of a number of books on training. What I want to do is take a moment to give you some insights into the Child Champion seminar series that we run. Before I get into it, I want to give you a little bit of background about why I'm so passionate about this subject. For the first 20 years or so of my professional career, I was involved with predominantly the athletes from about 17 upwards, so about 17 to 35 competing at the elite level. But when I started looking at having children, I took a whole new approach and began to study what was involved in training children. I was fortunate in my second decade of my professional career to be exposed to some really good teachers in the area of periodisation and multi-year periodisation. But I never really had learnt firsthand what it was like to be involved with coaching kids and what it meant to take them from being a child, literally from a child, through to being an adult, elite, successful athlete. So I spent the last 15 years making that a fairly big focus. And I've learned some significant things. Now, many of us can look back at our childhood and remember one or two great coaches we had. But what I'm seeing at the moment is too many coaches and too many experiences for the young athletes which are less than optimal. So what I'm hoping to do is give coaches, parents and ultimately the athletes the opportunity to fulfill the potential of the athlete. Not saying that we expect them to do so, but give them the opportunity to fulfill if they wish, if they choose to go on with it. So here's some of the things we'll be covering. First of all, let's talk about talent identification versus talent development. What I'm seeing too often in sport is that coaches will see the athlete and say, okay, he looks to me the better athlete, I'll put my energy into him. Now, when you're dealing with young athletes, you have to understand that there is different maturation rates. So what I fear is that too many athletes are being left behind because at any point in time in their youth development, they're not the most superior athlete. They might be physically less developed than their peers, they might be less of a risk taker, they might have some social challenges. And what I'm seeing too often is the coach is saying, okay, you're playing the best at the moment, so you'll be in my team and the rest can go and spend some time elsewhere. So it is my opinion, and in my encouragement to you, is that we have the obligation to develop every single athlete. Every single athlete. Unless we're in a very narrow talent identification program, we have an obligation as coaches to treat every athlete the same and give them equal opportunities. And that's often not occurring when the coaches are saying, well, what's the best team I can pick today? And at the end of the day, there's a lot of discussion we have about when is the right time to win and when do we need to develop for the future. Something we'll definitely be talking about a little bit more. So let's talk about holistic development. As a coach, we have the obligation to develop the athlete not just as an athlete. First of all, as a person who will make a positive contribution to society. Then secondly, as an athlete. And thirdly and finally, as a sports person in that specific sport. So it's important for me to stress to parents and coaches in particular the need to provide that holistic development. I know some of you would have had a great coach in the past, you can relate to what I'm talking about. Now, not only are we talking about holistic development, we're talking about having an impact on the athletes so that they play for life, because sport ultimately is play. And if we provide it as a positive experience, and if the young athlete experiences a positive experience, I believe that there's more chance that they will participate in sport and activity for the duration of their life, as opposed to if they see it as a chore or an unpleasant or an unsuccessful experience, more likely to drop out of sport. Now, there are many other aspects that we need to take into account when we look at training the athlete as far as their whole lifespan goes, including the concept that they listen. There is an attitude, a paradigm within sport that they're just a group of eggs. We throw them against the wall, and whichever egg doesn't break is the athlete that we'll work with because they must be the toughest and the best of them all. Well, in that process, if we break 11 of the 12 eggs, there's 11 broken athletes that will go through the rest of their life with potentially post-traumatic stress disorders. Now, I might sound a bit dramatic, but we have a far greater obligation to look into the long-term impact of what we're doing than I believe is currently occurring. Now, sport is in essence about developing the body to play the sport, but the first thing that I want to see taken into regard and respected is the athlete's mind. See, I don't understand how it can be good enough for an athlete to go into the care of a coach, perhaps this tall, and come out 1 hour later this tall. And I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about in their self-esteem, I'm talking about in their mind. I believe that no matter what their starting point is, that every athlete should be coming out of every session feeling a lot better about themselves. Now, yes, there will be some bumps and bruises emotionally along the way. I'm not saying we put them in cotton wool buds, but I see too much examples, too many examples where an athlete's spirit is being crushed because we're not caring for their emotions and their mind. If we do nothing else, if we give them self-confidence and build their self-esteem through sport, we've already achieved a lot. And I just want to see that happen more often. Then, of course, there's their body. Now, what I'm seeing at the moment is a phenomenal, it's a phenomena that where adult physical preparation, where the Americans like to call strength conditioning, is being filtered down inappropriately, in my opinion, to young athletes. So young athletes are being exposed to adult training in terms of their body. But worse than that is that the adult training was flawed. Now, if the adult was only exposed to it 20 years ago for the first time in their 20s, the flaws came through at the time they were retiring from sport anyway, so nobody noticed. When we're taking these same flawed adult training methods and applying them to the body of a child, most of them are having surgery and quitting sport for their 20 because their bodies can't go on any longer. We have got a major cultural issue being developed. I'm not suggesting it is as broad as, say, the diabetic situation globally, but we are having a significant phenomenon going on where I don't understand why people are not more switched onto this. And I know in 10, 20, 30 years' time, people will say, oh, gee, that was a silly thing we did. Look at all these broken athletes because of what we did between the ages of 10 and 20. So we've got some significant review of what's been going on, and we need to change it moving forwards. And finally, there are the sport-specific issues such as the technique and the tactics. And again, there are so many things I want to teach you about developing the technique in an athlete. It is a really simple thing to do. You know, if an athlete's technique is getting to the point where you want to pass on to high-level coaches, certainly do so. But we're talking about grassroots coaching here for the most part. And there are some really simple strategies that you can implement to change the way you positively impact the technique of the child. And I'm seeing a glaring lack of technical development in children. In the Western world, where I know in some other cultures, some of the Eastern Bloc cultures historically, their technical development of the young athlete has been far more effective and systemised. So that's an area that I really like to see pick up, and one of the things we'll be focusing on in our seminars. The other area is tactics. The tactical development in a team sport is a really simple thing as far as I'm concerned, at least at the base level, but it's very rarely done well. And one of the most common flaws I'm seeing in technical development is the attitude that if the individual does well in a team sport, then they're doing well. You're like, look at Johnny go, he looks so good. Now that is not technical development. That is not any form of tactical development. If you're in a team and the team is not playing well, then the technical development is, shall we say, not adequately developed enough. So I'm seeing a common theme where parents and coaches are rewarding the individual's efforts in a team sport when their actual tactical approach is undermining the team outcome. So there's that's just 7 of some of the things that we'll be covering in our seminars. And as you can see, I believe that there is an incredible need for education and advancement in this area, if for no other reason than for the future generation who's coming through. And the irony of it is that one of the greatest influence on the young athlete is the parents, and then obviously the coach of the young athlete. And the things that a parent needs to know about what to say and how to act in relation to their child's sport is a large body of information. It is so impacting because a young athlete will look to his parents or look to his coaches, and he'll take whatever they say and magnify it 100,000 times or repeat it over and over and again to themselves, even if the coach or the parent only said it once. So there's an incredible burden of responsibility on the parent and the coach to be very mindful of everything they say and the body language that they use and the message that they send to their children. So they're just some of the things that we'll be talking about during our seminar series on this subject. I look forward to chatting with you if you have the opportunity to join us with that. And more importantly, I look forward to the impact that you and I can have on the children of the world and in their sport and their life moving forwards.